On Fridays and Saturday nights at midnight, they showed Rocky Horror Picture Show. If that is not a quintessential Gen X experience, I don't know what is. I was a Gen X kid. We didn't have parents. Adult supervision was really not a thing in the 80s and 90s. I made my kids go outside and play. I was a wild child and I started settling down when I became a mom. Hey friends, it's me, Shannon, and I am back for another amazing, I can't actually believe that happened to anyone, Gen X story. All right. So I'm going to tell you a little story about growing up Gen X while I create this cute little alcohol marker piece. So if you've not been to my channel before, welcome. I'm Shannon. I grew up Gen X. I have some other stories on my channel about being Gen X. In fact, there was years where they could not figure out what to call us. Were we Gen X? Were we Gen... I think maybe at one point they tried to call us Gen Y. I think they tried to call us... Some people try to put us into the millennials, but I'm definitely Gen X. I also grew up with an older sister, so my experience was very Gen X. And then in my late teens, that's when like computers really started coming in, and that is more the millennial experience. Anyways, that is actually not pertinent to story, but welcome. I'm Shannon and I ramble. I'm going to tell you about an event that happened in the city that I grew up in. Every Friday and Saturday night, we had this movie theater called Billy Joe's, all right? And it was a great little movie theater because it was like a dinner theater, which we also had another dinner theater, but this one was different. You could go and they had tables and you could sit down and have dinner, and then you could watch whatever movie that they were playing. I believe that they had one screen with the dinner area, so it was like one of those little boutique theaters where they played one show at a time. I don't remember exactly because I only went to that part of it a couple times when I was much younger. On Fridays and Saturday nights at midnight, they showed Rocky Horror Picture Show. And if that is not a quintessential Gen X experience, I don't know what is. But I would go and watch Rocky Horror Picture Show at this movie theater at midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. Now, brace yourself because I'm about to tell you how old I was when this started. Are you ready? I was 14 when I first started going, and I think probably 16 the last time I went. So 14, 15, 16. Now, I usually went with friends because I did not have my license. I could not drive, but I had friends that could. But if you are somebody who grew up Gen X and you experienced Rocky Horror, then you understand this was an all-age kind of show. Like, there weren't children, but I was 14. I was a child, and I was going to Rocky Horror Picture Show. If you do not know what that means, if you do not understand what I'm talking about, let me paint a picture for you. So when Rocky Horror Picture Show first came out, it was a huge flop. And at some point, I don't remember the exact history of it, but at some point it gained a cult following and it would be shown in the theaters. There was like a different script that people would engage with the movie as it was playing. For instance, there's a point in it where they're introducing themselves and she says, "I'm Janet," and everybody yells "slut," or in one of the songs he sings, "Damn it, Janet, I love you," but everybody else is saying, "Go get screwed." So the audience had their own script, all right? And people dressed up. So it was not unusual to see very scantily clad individuals at these showings, right? There was often, if not always, alcohol and probably drugs, although I will tell you that my exposure to drugs was very minimal. When I was a teenager, I was exposed to alcohol and some mild forms of drugs, but I'm sure there was more than that going on. I just was not aware of it, right? Now, I did not go to these with my older sister, who at that time would have been in her 20s. I went by myself with friends. So you have a 14, 15-year-old going to what essentially was an adult party, right? They were young adults, late teens, I'm sure. Yeah. And it was like, looking back on it now, I'm like, God, I can't believe that actually happened. And I'm going to interject here because I know some of you are saying, but Shannon, where was your mother? Where was your adult to make sure that you were not getting into trouble? I will tell you, I was a Gen X kid. We didn't have parents. No, I love my mom. Hi, Mom. If you're watching this, I love you. But adult supervision was really not a thing in the 80s and 90s. It didn't exist in very many places, at least where most of us grew up. I don't know what our parents were actually doing, so I can't answer that. But, oh God, there is so much I could tell about this experience. I was a little goth girl, right? And so I dressed at this point in time, grunge was really starting to make its thing. So I was still I was in like black band t-shirts and flannel shirts, which is actually probably pretty good for me because I was very, how do I say? I don't even know how to explain this because I'm going to say this in a way that is bad, but it is not bad because that is not what I wanted. But I was very attractive to boys, guys, men, right? Like I was a young teenage girl and I was very well endowed and I attracted a lot of attention from a very young age, which sounds when somebody says that they might be bragging, but as a woman, that is not something that is ideal because you are sexualized from a very young age. I can remember meeting a guy for the first time, and of course he was a stuck-up egotistical jerk, but I can remember him being like, you showed up with blue jeans and flannel, like, so that was the response because at this stage in my life, it was probably actually really good for me that I was wearing blue jeans and band t-shirts. And when I say band t-shirts, I don't mean marching band t-shirts because it's interesting when you talk about band t-shirts. There's a very distinct group of people who it means something different to them. And to some people, it means marching band t-shirts from when they were in high school. And to others, it means like classic rock band t-shirts, right? Or grunge band t-shirt, or like your favorite musical artist t-shirts, right? That's what I'm talking about. So it was those t-shirts and then my favorite 90s flannel, which God, I miss. I'm seriously thinking about going to like my local farm store. And yes, there is a local farm store where I live because y'all, I'm in Iowa. I'm in the middle of the freaking Midwest. We are farmers. Des Moines metropolitan area is like 750,000 people. So we're not like small town hick, but the small towns around us all have farm stores. So I'm considering going and checking out them to see if they have some of that really good flannel. I don't know. I don't know if it's gone forever or not. But anyways, so I can remember this one time. I went with a really good friend of mine and it was a guy. And looking back at it as an adult, I am very thankful that this guy was a really good friend and really trustworthy because I'm fairly certain that he had a thing for me. He never crossed any boundaries. Okay. So we went to Rocky Horror and we had a grand old time, right? It was a blast. And then after Rocky Horror, there was usually an after party somewhere. But I can remember one of the after parties being at another local dinner theater that was closed. And one of the people that came to Rocky Horror was the manager. So he had keys and everybody went there and the after party was there. And we went down into the costuming area. And I think maybe they were doing cabaret at the time or something like that. And we all got the costumes out and were dressing up in the costumes. Yeah. And he was serving drinks from the bar for free, which I'm sure he probably should not have been doing. But anyways, that was one time. This particular time, we decided that the after party was going to be at a local park. It was around one of the rivers. Des Moines has 2 rivers that cross through it, the Des Moines River and Raccoon River. And this park was right along one of the rivers. And it has like little jetties of bodies of water that are smaller around it. And a huge group of us went there. You had to walk around one of the separated areas of the river to get onto this piece of land that jetted out into the water. And that's where the party was. At this point, I'm 3 sheets to the wind. I have no idea how I did not fall into the water. I remember at one point I slipped and my friend that was with me caught me. Thank God, because yeah, like this area of water was like you didn't swim in it. Mostly like people fish. And thinking about it now, like I go to that area now and I look at it and I think that had to be where we were that night. And none of this walking trail or fishing area, like none of this stuff was here. It was just like raw wooded area. And thinking back on it, like I don't know how I didn't die. Like I could have died. And I think that is the classic Gen X experience, right? I could have died because there was an enormous lack of supervision all the time. It was the 80s and the 90s, right? I feel like things have changed so drastically. Since then, I was talking to my daughter not too long ago, and I remember she made this comment about, and she's Gen Z, and I love Gen Z. Love you, Gen Z. You're my faves. And I say that with love because most of my students that I have taught through my career have been Gen Z. That's why you get to be my faves. Anyways, I remember her making a comment about how something along the lines of, I'm so tired of hearing that, oh, you wouldn't understand because it's a Gen X thing, and you wouldn't understand because it's a Gen X thing, because there's someone in her life that says that to her, right? And she looked at me and Mom, I was raised by a Gen Xer. I understand what a Gen X thing is because some of those things you did as a parent, right? I'm not gonna lie. My kids drank from the hose, right? I made my kids go outside and play. They did. Were they on tech? Yes. Did they have tech? Yeah. Did they watch TV? And did they have computers? Yes. But damn it, I made my kids go outside when they were younger. So they were raised by a Gen Xer. So they have some of that Gen X experience just by being raised by one. I was parented in a certain way. And so I parented in a certain way until I knew better. By that point, most of my kids were older, right? Like when you know better, you do better. And unfortunately, when my kids were younger, I didn't necessarily know better. I had one example of what parenting was like. But I think that is a common experience for Gen X, right? I didn't die. But so we went to this party at the park, and I use the word park loosely because it was, I think it might be part of a state park. It was not like your city park where there was a playground and everything. It was a wooded area around water, and there was lots of alcohol and I'm sure other things going on. But I have to be honest, I don't really remember much of the after party because, like I said, I was 3 sheets to the wind. And thankfully, my friend that was with me, he took really good care of me. He made sure that I didn't get taken advantage of. And like I said, thankfully, he was very trustworthy. I don't really know if maybe roofies were a thing at that point. I don't remember them being a thing. I don't remember knowing about them. I did a lot of my partying in my teens. And then when I was over it in my 20s, right? In my 20s, I was having babies and raising kids, and I was not partying. I didn't have people to party with, but I did a lot in my teen years. And yeah, I just look on it now and like, I love Rocky Horror. I love that Rocky Horror still exists. I remember when Billy Joe's closed, I was so sad that there was not going to be a place that was going to keep that tradition alive, because it had been going on since, when did the movie come out? Like in the 70s. I'm sure it plays in other places. Like I'm sure it's still playing in movie theaters around the country, and maybe teens and 20s today still go and experience Rocky Horror Picture Show. I do know that there's a local fan convention that I have went to frequently here in Des Moines, and there's a couple that I know that they would throw a room party, and it would be the Rocky Horror room party. I'm pretty sure that she's a millennial, so I don't know. Her husband might be Gen X. I don't know, but a lot of the people that attended the parties were my age. But my kids went to those fan conventions and they attended them too. But the room parties were not anything close to the actual Rocky Horror parties that I went to, right? These are small parties that people are popping in and out of in hotel rooms, right? There's families there, so like families are popping in. So people were watching the movie and people were like reciting the audience script and stuff, but that was pretty much the extent of it. It didn't really get wild and crazy. So yeah, I would love to hear from other people. Are there other places in the country where they still have Rocky Horror playing at midnight on Fridays and Saturdays? I would love to know that, because, and if you were one of those people that went to them and you're not Gen X, tell me your story. I want to hear about it, especially Gen Z, right? If you're Gen Z, how did you get out of the house? Was that I'm going to tell my parents I'm staying at someone else's house? Because I never did that. Like, we never did that when I was a kid. I'm sure that there were people that did that, but I did not. I just left. So I would love to hear if you are not Gen X and you have a Rocky Horror experience, right? Tell me how. I want to hear about your experiences. Tell me how. Drop it in the comments. I have very different life experience than 14-year-old me had and 15-year-old me. Whew. I was a wild one. I was a wild child until I had my first daughter. That's pretty much when I started like settling down, was when I became a mom. I hope you enjoyed that story, either by reminiscing and taking a nostalgic walk down memory lane with me as something that you did, or a jaw-dropping, oh my god, I can't believe that somebody actually did that at such a young age. That was a normal thing. Like, I have to emphasize here, this was not me sneaking out of the house and having these wild experiences, right? This was a normal thing. I went to Rocky Horror Picture Show on frequent occasions, so it was a common experience. I would also love to hear any of your wild child experiences, because I know there are other wild childs out there, and we got to say strong in our solidarity, right? I hope that you enjoyed this story, and if you did, please consider giving me a... If you are interested in hearing absolutely crazy Gen X stories, if you're interested in hearing about art or watching cute little art being made, right? Or cats or witchcraft or plants or being a wild child, right? Consider subscribing, because those are the stories that you're going to get if you stick around my channel. I want to thank you so much for coming, and I will see you in the next one.